In San Francisco's Mark Hopkins penthouse, a marketing executive was about to face devastating betrayal. What started as an engagement celebration took a shocking turn when she discovered her CEO fiancé's true allegiance. Sofia Reeves wasn't your typical corporate victim. For 3 years, she had built what she believed was genuine partnership with Alexander Sterling, known for her strategic brilliance. When Alexander introduced his secretary as his real partner, Sofia responded with a calculated move that would spark corporate warfare. What began as public humiliation became Silicon Valley's most spectacular takedown. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The crystal chandeliers of the Mark Hopkins penthouse cast prismatic light across San Francisco's tech elite, their gentle sway creating dancing shadows on the marble floor. Sofia Reeves adjusted her emerald green silk dress, Alexander's favorite, and surveyed the sea of faces surrounding her. CEOs, venture capitalists, board members, and journalists filled the opulent space, their conversations a symphony of corporate power and influence. "Sophia, darling," Margaret Whitfield, wife of a prominent venture capitalist, approached with champagne flute in hand. "You must be absolutely thrilled. Alexander is such a catch." Sophia's smile felt as natural as breathing. After 3 years with Alexander, she'd perfected the art of gracious humility. "I feel incredibly fortunate," she replied, meaning every word. "We make a good team." And they did, didn't they? Sofia had built her marketing consultancy from nothing, leveraging her working-class determination into something that commanded respect in Silicon Valley's ruthless ecosystem. When Alexander Sterling had first approached her company for a strategic partnership, she'd seen it as validation of her professional achievements. When he'd asked her out 6 months later, she'd believed it was because he recognized something deeper: the woman beneath the polished executive exterior. "Alexander was just telling us about the merger with Titan Corp," said James Chen, a board member from one of the city's largest investment firms. "Brilliant strategy. You must be proud." Sofia nodded, though a flicker of confusion crossed her mind. She hadn't heard the details of any Titan Corp merger. "Alexander keeps me on my toes," she said diplomatically. Across the room, Alexander commanded attention near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. At 38, he possessed the kind of charismatic presence that drew people into his orbit. Tall, impeccably dressed, with dark hair silvered at the temples, and eyes that seemed to see opportunity in everything. His secretary, Isabella Kane, stood slightly behind him, her auburn hair pulled into a sleek chignon, her black dress understated yet elegant. Sofia had always appreciated Isabella's professionalism. The woman was efficient, discreet, and had an uncanny ability to anticipate Alexander's needs before he voiced them. If Sofia felt the occasional pang of something, not jealousy exactly, but awareness, she dismissed it as the natural dynamics of a busy executive's life. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alexander's voice carried across the room, commanding immediate attention. The conversations died as guests turned toward him, champagne glasses paused mid-sip. Sofia moved closer, her heart fluttering with anticipation. This was it. The moment Alexander would formally announce their engagement to his professional world. They'd kept it relatively quiet, sharing the news only with close friends and family. Tonight was meant to be their grand revelation. "Tonight is a celebration," Alexander continued, his arm sliding around Isabella's waist in a gesture so natural it took Sofia's breath away. "Not just of personal happiness, but of a partnership that has transformed Sterling Technologies into what it is today." The room erupted in polite applause. Sofia felt her smile freeze, confusion clouding her features. "Partnership?" She glanced around, expecting to see other guests looking equally puzzled, but their faces showed only polite interest. "I want you all to meet my real partner," Alexander said, his voice warm with genuine affection as he looked down at Isabella. "Isabella Kane. Without her strategic brilliance and unwavering dedication, Sterling Technologies would never have achieved the success we celebrate tonight." The applause was warmer now, more genuine. Sofia watched as Isabella's cheeks flushed with pleasure, her smile radiant in a way Sofia had never seen before. The woman's hand rested naturally on Alexander's chest, and he covered it with his own. Sofia's mind reeled, trying to process what she was seeing. Real partner? The words echoed in her head as she watched the way Alexander looked at Isabella, with the kind of admiration and intimacy she'd thought was reserved for her. The way Isabella leaned into him, comfortable and confident in a way that spoke of something far deeper than professional collaboration. Of course, Alexander's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, and he found Sofia across the room, and she saw something in his eyes she had never noticed before: calculation. Sofia Reeves, my fiancé, has been invaluable in helping us expand our marketing reach. The applause that followed felt hollow. Sofia realized she was being relegated to an afterthought, a business asset mentioned in passing after the real celebration. Her marketing expertise, the thing she'd built her career on, her greatest professional achievement, reduced to a supporting role in Alexander's success story. As the applause died down, Sofia found herself scanning the room with new eyes. The board members who'd always been cordial but never quite warm, the investors who'd treated her like an accessory to Alexander's vision, the journalists who'd asked about her company but always steered conversations back to Sterling Technologies. She'd thought she was building a life with Alexander. Now she wondered if she'd simply been recruited. Near the bar, she noticed a man she didn't recognize. Tall, lean, with dark hair and an intelligent face that seemed to be studying the room with the same analytical intensity she felt. Their eyes met across the space, and something in his expression suggested he'd caught the undercurrents of what had just happened. The party continued around her, but Sofia felt as though she was observing it from a great distance. Conversations about quarterly projections and market expansions swirled past her, and she began to notice how often Isabella's name came up in discussions she'd never been part of. How many decisions had been made in rooms she'd never entered? How many strategies developed in conversations that happened after she went home? Wonderful speech, wasn't it? Margaret Whitfield appeared at her elbow again, her voice carrying a note of something that might have been sympathy. Sofia looked at her sharply. You knew about Isabella's role in the company? Margaret's expression shifted, becoming carefully neutral. Well, of course, darling. Isabella's been Alexander's right hand for years. Such a brilliant woman. I'm surprised he waited this long to give her proper recognition. The words hit Sofia like a physical blow. Years. While she'd been falling in love, building what she thought was a partnership, Isabella had been the one truly sharing Alexander's professional life, his ambitions, his daily victories and challenges. A waiter passed with champagne, and Sofia found herself reaching for a glass, needing something to do with her hands. As she lifted it to her lips, she caught sight of Alexander and Isabella near the windows, their heads bent together in intimate conversation. Her laugh carried across the room, warm, genuine, unguarded in a way that suggested complete comfort with the man beside her. She'd heard that laugh before through Alexander's office door during late-night strategy sessions. She'd attributed it to workplace camaraderie. Now she understood it for what it was. The sound of a woman completely at ease with the man she loved. The realization settled over her like a chill. This wasn't just professional betrayal. The way Alexander touched Isabella's lower back as they moved through the crowd. The way Isabella's eyes never left his face when he spoke. The way they moved together like two people who'd been dancing the same dance for years. She was the other woman, in her own engagement party. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The stranger from the bar was approaching now, his expression carefully controlled but his eyes sharp with intelligence. As he drew closer, Sofia found herself straightening, some instinct for self-preservation kicking in. Miss Reeves, he said, extending his hand, Nathaniel Cross. I couldn't help but admire your grace under pressure. His handshake was firm, his voice low enough that their conversation wouldn't carry. There was something in his tone that suggested he understood exactly what kind of pressure she was under. Sofia felt something shift inside her, a coldness that had nothing to do with the San Francisco fog rolling in beyond the windows.
She looked across the room at Alexander, who was now guiding Isabella toward a group of venture capitalists, his hand possessive on his waist. Then she looked back at Nathaniel Cross, noting the intelligence in his eyes, the careful way he was studying her reaction. When she spoke, her voice carried a clarity that surprised even her. "Mr. Cross," she said, loud enough for nearby conversations to pause, "how lovely to meet you. Please, let me introduce you to everyone." She raised her voice slightly, drawing the attention of the surrounding guests. "This is Nathaniel Cross, my lawyer." The words hung in the air, and Sofia watched as Alexander's head turned sharply in her direction. For the first time all evening, she had his complete attention. And for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't entirely sure what she was going to do with it. The party continued around them, but something fundamental had shifted. The perfect facade was beginning to crack, and Sofia Reeves was no longer content to simply smile and nod her way through someone else's carefully orchestrated performance. Alexander's hand tightened on his champagne flute as Sofia's words echoed across the penthouse. "My lawyer." The phrase hung in the air as a challenge, and Sofia watched his carefully composed expression flicker with something that might have been concern. Nathaniel Cross stepped smoothly into the moment, his voice carrying professional warmth. "Miss Reeves has been consulting with our firm on some strategic matters." His eyes met Alexander's across the room, and Sofia caught the subtle assessment passing between them. Two predators, recognizing each other's presence. The party resumed its rhythm, but Sofia felt the shift in energy. Conversations carried a new undercurrent. Glances lingered a moment longer, and she noticed how often Isabella's name came up in discussions she'd never been part of. How many decisions had been made in rooms she'd never entered? How many strategies developed in conversations that happened after she went home?
Strategic matters? Margaret Whitfield's voice carried just enough curiosity to fuel the room's speculation. Sophia smiled, the expression feeling foreign on her face. "A woman in my position needs to protect her interests." The words surprised her with their cold precision. She hadn't planned them, but they felt right, like armor she'd forgotten she owned. 2 hours later, Sophia stood alone in the penthouse's marble bathroom, her reflection staring back from the gilded mirror. The woman looking back seemed different somehow, sharper, more focused. The emerald dress still hugged her curves perfectly, but something in her posture had changed. She no longer looked like someone waiting to be chosen. Through the bathroom door, she could hear the party winding down, voices growing softer as guests filtered toward the elevators. Soon, she'd have to face Alexander directly, without the buffer of an audience. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt strangely calm. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Sophia?" Isabella's voice, carefully modulated. Sophia opened the door to find Alexander's secretary, his real partner, standing in the hallway, her perfect composure showing the first cracks of the evening. "We should talk," Isabella said, glancing toward the main room where Alexander was bidding farewell to the last guests. "Should we?" Sophia's voice carried a new edge. "I'm beginning to think there's been quite enough talking tonight, just not the kind that included me." Isabella's mask slipped entirely. "You don't understand the situation you're in." "Enlighten me." Sophia stepped closer, noting how Isabella instinctively took a step back. "Interesting. Alexander isn't the man you think he is." Isabella's voice dropped to a whisper. "This engagement, your relationship, it was never about love. It was about access, your client list, your industry connections, your reputation. He needed legitimacy in the marketing world, and you provided it." The words should have devastated her. Instead, Sophia felt only a cold kind of clarity. "And you, what do you provide?" Isabella's laugh was bitter. "Everything else. The strategy, the real work, the actual partnership he talks about. But I can't be the face of it. Not a secretary, not someone without the right pedigree, the right connections, not someone who didn't go to Stanford." Her eyes flashed with resentment. Sofia absorbed this, her marketing mind automatically cataloging the implications. How long? 5 years, since before he met you. The timeline clicked into place. Alexander had pursued her exactly when Sterling Technologies needed to expand into new markets. Their courtship had coincided perfectly with his company's strategic pivot into consumer marketing. "Why tell me this?" Sofia asked. Isabella's expression hardened. "Because tonight changed things. Your lawyer friend? That wasn't planned. Alexander doesn't like surprises, and he especially doesn't like being caught off guard publicly." She paused. "He's going to come after you now, and when he does, you'll understand exactly what kind of man you've been sleeping with." Footsteps approached from the main room. Isabella straightened, her professional mask sliding back into place as Alexander appeared in the hallway. "Ladies," he said, his voice carrying its usual charm, but Sofia caught the steel underneath. "Sofia, darling, we should head home. It's been quite an evening." Sofia looked between them, Alexander with his practiced smile, Isabella with her carefully neutral expression, and realized she was seeing the real partnership for the first time. They moved around each other with the easy familiarity of two people who'd been working together for years, who understood each other's rhythms and needs. She'd been the outsider all along. The penthouse elevator descended in suffocating silence. Alexander stood perfectly composed beside her, scrolling through his phone as if the evening had proceeded exactly as planned. Sofia watched the floor numbers tick downward, each digit marking another moment in what she now understood had been an elaborate performance. "Interesting development tonight," Alexander said without looking up from his device. "Your lawyer friend?" Sofia kept her voice steady. "Nathaniel? He's been handling some consulting contracts for me." The lie came easier than she'd expected. Alexander's thumb moved across his screen. "I don't recall you mentioning any legal issues." "Not issues, opportunities." She watched his reflection in the polished elevator doors. "I'm expanding the business. I thought you'd be pleased." For the first time, Alexander looked at her directly. His eyes held the calculating look he'd seen him use with difficult board members. "Of course, darling. Though perhaps next time we could discuss these expansions beforehand. Coordination is important in any partnership." Partnership. The word felt different now, weighted with implications she was only beginning to understand. The elevator opened into the parking garage, and Alexander's driver waited beside the Tesla. As they settled into the leather seats, Sofia made her decision. "Actually, I think I'll stay at Maya's tonight." The word surprised them both. Alexander's composure cracked slightly. "Your sister's? Why?" "Girl talk. About the engagement." Sofia met his gaze steadily. "You understand." Something flickered across his features. Annoyance, maybe calculation, but he nodded. "Of course. I'll have Thomas drop you off." 30 minutes later, Sofia stood outside Maya's Mission District apartment, her designer dress incongruous against the graffitied walls. Her sister opened the door wearing paint-stained jeans and a skeptical expression.
Well, well, the prodigal sister returns. Maya's dark eyes, so like Sofia's own, took in the formal attire. "Let me guess. The engagement party was everything you dreamed?" Sofia's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. "Maya, I think I've made a terrible mistake." Her sister's expression softened immediately. "Come in. I'll make coffee." Maya's apartment was chaos, journalism awards mixed with activist posters, tech equipment scattered across surfaces, investigative notes pinned to every available wall. It felt real in a way the penthouse never had. "I tried to warn you," Maya said gently, handing Sofia a steaming mug. "Alexander Sterling has a reputation in certain circles." "What kind of reputation?" Maya settled onto the couch beside her. "The kind that doesn't make it into Forbes profiles. Corporate raiders, hostile takeovers disguised as partnerships. He's brilliant at identifying valuable smaller companies and absorbing them." She paused, "usually after gaining the founder's trust." Sofia stared into her coffee.
their trust, or their hearts. Sophia, Maya's voice was careful. What happened tonight? As Sophia described the evening, Alexander's speech, Isabella's revelation, the growing awareness that she'd been systematically recruited rather than romanced, Maya's expression grew increasingly grim. There's something else, Maya said finally. I have been investigating Sterling Technologies for months. Not for any story, just because I never trusted him around you. She moved to her computer. Want to see what your fiancé's been hiding? Sophia looked at her sister's concerned face, then at the computer screen that promised uncomfortable truths. Show me everything. Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up files that made Sophia's blood run cold. Bank records, acquisition documents, private emails, a digital paper trail of systematic corporate predation. Look at this pattern, Maya said, highlighting transactions from the past 3 years. Sterling Technologies identifies promising startups. Alexander cultivates personal relationships with the founders, then orchestrates hostile takeovers once he's gained their trust and inside information. Sophia leaned closer, recognizing several company names. I recommended him to some of these people. I made the introductions. Which is exactly why he needed you. Maya's voice was gentle but firm. Your reputation opened doors his couldn't. The apartment door buzzed. Maya checked her security monitor and frowned. There's a man downstairs asking for you. Says his name is Nathaniel Cross. Sophia's pulse quickened. She'd forgotten about her impulsive lawyer claim. Let him up. Nathaniel appeared minutes later, looking less polished than at the party, but somehow more real. He'd loosened his tie and his dark hair showed traces of the fog outside. Miss Reeves, he said, then paused as he took in Maya's investigative wall. I see you've been busy. You're not really her lawyer, are you? Maya's journalist instincts were sharp. No, Nathaniel admitted, but after tonight, I'd like to be. He turned to Sophia. I specialize in protecting smaller companies from predatory acquisitions. I've been watching Sterling Technologies for months. Sophia felt something click into place. You were at the party to investigate Alexander. Among other things, Nathaniel's expression was carefully neutral. Maya stood abruptly. I'm publishing the Sterling story tomorrow. I have enough evidence to raise serious questions about their acquisition practices. Wait, Sophia said. If you publish now, Alexander will know I'm behind it. He'll retaliate before we're ready. Nathaniel nodded approvingly. Smart thinking. We need to coordinate our approach. Sophia looked between them, her sister, fierce and protective, and this stranger who had appeared at exactly the right moment. For the first time since the party, she felt something other than betrayal and shock. She felt the stirring of possibility. What do you need from me? She asked Nathaniel. Access, information, and most importantly, the willingness to fight back. His eyes were serious. Sterling won't expect resistance from someone he considers a romantic conquest. That's our advantage. Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Miss you already, darling. Let's have breakfast tomorrow to discuss our future. The casual possessiveness in his words that once might have flattered her now felt like a trap closing. But looking at Maya and Nathaniel, Sophia realized something had fundamentally shifted. She was no longer Alexander's fiancé or his unwitting accomplice. She was becoming something far more dangerous, an enemy he'd trained himself. When do we start? She asked. Nathaniel smiled, and for the first time all evening, Sophia smiled back. The war for her life was about to begin. 3 days after Maya's exposé hit TechCrunch's front page, Sophia's phone rang with the 4th client cancellation of the morning. I'm sorry, Sophia, came the apologetic voice of Jennifer Walsh, CEO of a promising AI startup. The board feels it's best if we pause our marketing contract while this situation with Alexander resolves itself.
Sophia stared out the window of her temporary office, a cramped space Maya had helped her rent when returning to the penthouse became impossible. I understand, Jennifer. Thank you for the courtesy call.
But she didn't understand, not really. How had Alexander moved so quickly? How had he convinced her clients that her professional reputation was somehow tainted by association with his business practices? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Coffee? A. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she forwarded the message to Nathaniel. His response came immediately. Don't go alone. I'm coming over. 20 minutes later, Nathaniel burst through her office door, his usually composed demeanor showing cracks of frustration. He's been calling everyone, your clients, potential partners, even your former colleagues at Harrison Vale's company. What's he telling them? That you're having a breakdown, that the engagement stress has affected your judgment, that you're making wild accusations to get attention. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He's very convincing. Sophia felt the walls closing in. Her consulting practice, everything she'd built from nothing, was crumbling because Alexander controlled the narrative. How many clients have I lost? 60% of your active contracts. Nathaniel's voice was gentle. But Sophia, this confirms something important. He's scared. People who are innocent don't react this aggressively. A knock interrupted them. Sophia opened the door to find Isabella Kane, looking uncharacteristically nervous. We need to talk, Isabella said, glancing over her shoulder. Alexander doesn't know I'm here. Sophia hesitated, but then stepped aside. Isabella entered, her usual professional composure showing stress fractures. He's planning something, Isabella said without preamble. The client calls were just the beginning. He's meeting with someone tomorrow, a private investigator. He wants dirt on you, your sister, anyone in your circle. Why are you telling me this? Nathaniel asked, his lawyer's skepticism evident. Isabella's laugh was bitter. Because I finally realized I'm disposable too. Last night he told me to prepare transition documents when his new marketing director starts. Apparently once he's neutralized you, he won't need his interim partner anymore. Sophia studied Isabella's face, seeing her own betrayal reflected there. What kind of dirt is he looking for? Anything. Financial irregularities, personal scandals, professional misconduct. He's particularly interested in Maya's sources for the story. She paused. And he wants to know everything about Mr. Cross here. Nathaniel and Sophia exchanged glances. They'd underestimated Alexander's reach and ruthlessness. There's something else, Isabella continued, her voice dropping. The company books don't add up. I think Alexander has been moving money through shell companies, maybe even embezzling funds to finance his personal acquisitions. Sophia felt a spark of hope amid the fear. Do you have proof? Isabella's smile was sharp as a blade. I have access to everything. The question is, are you ready to play as dirty as he does? Sophia's answer died on her lips as her phone rang. The caller ID made her blood freeze. Theodore Sterling. Alexander's father had never called her directly. Ms. Reeves, the elder Sterling's voice carried decades of corporate authority. I believe we need to discuss my son's recent activities. Isabella's eyes widened. She mouthed, He knows. Mr. Sterling? Sophia managed. I'm not sure what you mean. Please. I've been in business for 40 years. I know when someone is waging war on my company. His tone softened slightly. The question is whether you're willing to hear an old man's concerns about the direction that war might take. 30 minutes later, Sophia sat across from Theodore Sterling in a quiet corner of the Fairmont Hotel's lobby. At 72, Alexander's father still commanded respect. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with the bearing of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. I founded Sterling Technologies to create something meaningful, he began, his weathered hands folded on the marble table. My son has evolved it into something I no longer recognize. Sophia studied his face. You know about the predatory acquisitions? I suspected. Now, thanks to your sister's investigation and some internal auditing, I know. His expression darkened. Alexander has been using company funds for personal investments, disguising hostile takeovers as legitimate partnerships. He's put everything I built at risk. Why tell me this? Theodore's smile was sad.
Because I've been watching him destroy people for 3 years, and I convinced myself it was just aggressive business. But what he's doing to you? He shook his head. This isn't business anymore. This is vindictive. This is the behavior of someone who's lost their moral compass entirely. Mr. Sterling, Theodore, please. He leaned forward. I want to help you stop him, not because I don't love my son, but because I do. He's become someone who would have disgusted the young man I raised. Sofia felt a shift in the room's energy. What kind of help? Board access, financial records, and most importantly, the votes to remove him as CEO when the time comes. Theodore's eyes hardened. I still control 30% of the board. Combined with external pressure from your legal challenges and media coverage, it might be enough. You'd destroy your own son's career?
I'd save it, Theodore corrected, before he crosses a line that lands him in federal prison. Sofia's phone buzzed with a message from Maya. Alexander's PI just contacted 3 of my sources. This is escalating fast. She showed the message to Theodore, whose jaw tightened. He's threatening journalists now? That's a dangerous game, even for Alexander. What happens next? Theodore stood, his decision made. Next, we coordinate. Your lawyer friend, your sister's media platform, my board influence, and Isabella's inside information. He paused. But understand, once we begin this, Alexander will realize his own father is working against him. That kind of betrayal changes a man. Sofia thought of the past 3 years, of the careful manipulation disguised as love, of the humiliation at her own engagement party. He changed first, she said quietly. Theodore nodded, extending his hand. Then let's remind him that some betrayals have consequences. The war room Maya had assembled in her apartment buzzed with coordinated precision. Laptops covered every surface, secure phone lines connected to regulatory contacts, and a timeline of Alexander's illegal activities stretched across one entire wall. Sofia stood at the center of it all, no longer the broken woman from a week ago, but something sharper, a general preparing for battle. Federal investigators confirmed receipt of Isabella's financial documents, Nathaniel reported, ending a secure call. The embezzlement evidence is solid. They're moving fast. Maya looked up from her computer. TechCrunch wants an exclusive on Theodore's statement. When he goes public about his son's practices, it'll be front-page news across every tech publication. Timing is everything, Sofia said, studying the coordinated schedule they'd developed. Theodore's statement at 9 a.m., federal investigation announcement at 10, Nathaniel's legal filings at 11, and Maya's comprehensive expose at noon. 4 hours to destroy everything Alexander built. Isabella, who'd been quietly reviewing documents, spoke up. He suspects something. This morning he asked me to prepare emergency fund transfers to offshore accounts. Let him try, Theodore said grimly from the corner. He'd aged the years in the past week, the weight of betraying his son etching new lines in his face. Sofia's phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Enough games, Sofia. Meet me tonight or this gets much worse for everyone you care about. She showed the message to the room. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He's desperate. That makes him dangerous. Good, Sofia said, surprising herself with the coldness in her voice. Desperate people make mistakes. At 8:45 a.m., Sofia positioned herself in the Sterling Technologies lobby, watching employees arrive for what they didn't know would be the company's most devastating day. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see news vans already gathering, Maya's media contacts responding to carefully timed tips. Her phone rang. Alexander's voice was strained when she answered. What have you done? The charm was completely gone now, replaced with barely controlled fury. I've stopped playing your game, Sofia replied calmly. You might want to turn on the news. At exactly 9 a.m., Theodore's voice echoed from every screen in the lobby as he held his press conference. Sofia watched Alexander's employees freeze, coffee cups suspended halfway to the lips, as the company founder publicly condemned his son's practices. I can no longer stand by while Sterling Technologies becomes a vehicle for corporate predation. Theodore's voice carried across the silent lobby. Effective immediately, I am calling for my son's removal as CEO and full cooperation with federal investigators.
Sophia's phone exploded with angry texts from Alexander, but she was already moving, walking out of the building as federal agents walked in. Through the window, she could see Alexander's corner office, could imagine his face as he realized the scope of the coordinated attack. By noon, Alexander Sterling was no longer CEO of Sterling Technologies. Federal marshals had seized company computers, the SEC had frozen trading of company stock, and every major tech publication was running stories about the Sterling scandal. Sophia stood in Union Square, watching the news coverage on her phone. 3 months ago, she'd been planning a wedding. Now, she'd orchestrated the downfall of one of Silicon Valley's most prominent CEOs. Her phone rang one final time. Alexander's voice was barely recognizable, raw, broken, dangerous. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started. I'll destroy you, Sophia. I'll destroy everyone you care about." Sophia looked up at the Sterling Technologies building, where federal agents were still carrying out boxes of evidence. "Try," she said simply, and hung up. The perfect storm had passed, but Sophia knew that Alexander Sterling in defeat might be even more dangerous than Alexander Sterling in power.
What do you want? Sophia asked. I want to understand. Alexander stepped closer, and she caught the scent of alcohol on his breath. 3 years, Sophia. 3 years we built something together. Doesn't that mean anything to you? We didn't build anything together, Sophia replied, her voice cutting through his delusion. You used me. You manipulated me. You turned my love into a business strategy. Love? Alexander's expression shifted, becoming almost pitying. You think this was about love? Sophia, you were always too smart to believe in fairy tales. The words should have hurt. A month ago, they would have devastated her. Now Sophia felt only a cold kind of clarity. You're right. I was too smart. That's why I'm still standing, and you're facing federal prison. Alexander's composure cracked entirely. You destroyed everything. My company, my reputation, my relationship with my father. No, you destroyed those things. I just stopped enabling you. For a moment, Alexander looked genuinely confused, as if the concept of consequences for his actions was foreign. Then his expression hardened into something that made Sophia's blood chill. This isn't over, he said quietly. You think you understand the game now, but you have no idea how deep this goes. How many people owe me favors? How many ways I can still hurt you? Actually, came Nathaniel's voice as he approached, it is over. Alexander turned, his mouth twisting into a sneer. The white knight arrives. How romantic. Nathaniel's expression remained calm, but Sophia caught the steel in his voice. Mr. Sterling, you're in violation of the restraining order, and in case you hadn't heard, the grand jury voted to indict this morning. Embezzlement, securities fraud, and now witness intimidation. The color drained from Alexander's face. What? Federal marshals are looking for you as we speak, Nathaniel continued. I'd suggest you contact your attorney immediately. Alexander looked between them, something breaking behind his eyes. The charming manipulator, the brilliant strategist, the golden boy, all of it stripped away to reveal something smaller and more desperate. This was supposed to be different, he said, and for a moment Sophia heard an echo of the man she'd thought she loved. We were supposed to be partners. We were never partners, Alexander, Sophia said gently. Partners trust each other. Partners respect each other. You only wanted to own me. Alexander stared at her for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. Sophia watched him disappear into the San Francisco fog, feeling something that might have been pity. You okay? Nathaniel asked softly. Sophia took a deep breath, tasting freedom. I will be. 6 months after Alexander's arrest, Sophia stood in the conference room of what had once been Sterling Technologies, now rebranded as Meridian Solutions under Theodore's steady leadership.
Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, illuminating the faces of board members who'd voted unanimously to approve her consulting firm's ethics transformation proposal. "Your comprehensive restructuring plan impressed everyone," Theodore said after the other board members had filed out. At 73, he looked younger than he had during the crisis, as if exposing his son's crimes had lifted a weight he'd carried for years. Sofia gathered her presentation materials, still adjusting to being sought after rather than professionally exiled. "The company has good bones, Theodore. The employees weren't responsible for Alexander's choices." "No, but they were affected by them." Theodore moved to the windows, gazing out at the city where his son now awaited trial in federal custody. Morale was destroyed, trust was shattered. It takes time to rebuild corporate culture. "Speaking of rebuilding, how are you managing?" Theodore's smile was sad but genuine. "Better than I expected. I visit Alexander twice a week. He's different now. Prison has a way of stripping away delusions." He paused. "He asked about you last week." Sofia felt a familiar tightness in her chest, but it passed quickly. "What did he tell him?" "The truth, that you're building something meaningful, that you found your place." He studied my face. "Have you found your place?" Before Sofia could answer, Maya burst through the conference room door, her journalist's energy filling the space. "Sorry I'm late. The Pulitzer committee meeting ran long." She grinned at Sofia. "They loved the Sterling Exposé series. I think we might actually have a shot." "You deserve it," Sofia said, embracing her sister. "That investigation changed everything." "We changed everything," Maya corrected. "Though I have to say, working with Nathaniel on the legal documentation was surprisingly enjoyable." Sofia raised an eyebrow. "Enjoyable?" "Professional," she amended quickly, but her cheeks flushed. "He's very, thorough." A knock interrupted them. Isabella Kane appeared in the doorway, looking transformed from the polished secretary of months ago. She wore a simple business suit, her hair shorter, her demeanor more confident. "Sofia," Isabella said formally, then smiled, "I wanted to thank you again for the recommendation. The consulting position with Harrison Vale's firm is exactly what I needed. You earned it. Your insights during the restructuring were invaluable." Isabella's expression grew serious. "I also wanted you to know I testified at Alexander's sentencing hearing yesterday. The judge gave him 7 years." The room fell silent. 7 years felt both too long and not long enough for the damage Alexander had inflicted.
"How do you feel about it?" Theodore asked his former daughter-in-law-to-be. Sofia considered the question carefully, relieved, not because of the punishment, but because it's finally over. She looked around the room at these people who'd become her chosen family. And ready to build something better. Outside, San Francisco stretched toward the horizon, full of possibility. 1 year after the engagement party that changed everything, Sofia stood at the podium of the Commonwealth Club, looking out at an audience of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and journalists. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was delivering a keynote speech on ethical leadership in the same city where Alexander had once commanded similar rooms through charm and manipulation. "True partnership," Sofia said, her voice carrying easily through the hushed auditorium, "isn't about control or acquisition. It's about mutual respect, shared values, and the courage to hold each other accountable when we lose our way." In the front row, Nathaniel watched with quiet pride. Their relationship had developed slowly, built on the foundation of trust forged during their battle against Alexander. No grand gestures or sweeping declarations, just the steady construction of something real and lasting. "The question each leader must ask," Sofia continued, "is whether you're building bridges or burning them, whether you're creating value or extracting it, whether you're inspiring loyalty or demanding submission." The applause was warm and sustained. As Sofia stepped down from the podium, she was approached by a woman in an elegant navy suit, Catherine Morrison, CEO of Global Dynamics, one of the Fortune 100 companies seeking ethical transformation in the wake of recent corporate scandals. "Ms. Reeves," Catherine said, extending her hand, "that was exactly what our board needed to hear. I'd like to discuss the position we spoke about. The offer had come 3 weeks ago. Chief Ethics Officer for Global Dynamics, a newly created role with significant authority and resources. It would mean leaving her consulting practice, taking on corporate employment again, but with the power to implement systemic change on a massive scale. I'm honored by the offer, Sophia replied, but I have conditions. Catherine's eyebrows rose. Such as complete authority over compliance and ethics initiatives, direct reporting to the board, not through other executives, and the ability to terminate any employee, regardless of rank, for ethical violations. Granted, Catherine said without hesitation. When can you start? As Sophia walked through the evening fog toward the small restaurant where Nathaniel waited, she reflected on the year's journey, from betrayed fiancé to corporate reformer, from victim to victor, from someone who'd built her identity around another person's approval to someone who knew her own worth. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Saw the speech livestream. You were brilliant. Coffee tomorrow to celebrate your new job? Another message followed from Isabella. Thank you for showing me that we don't have to accept the roles others assign us. Even Theodore had sent a note. Alexander asked me to tell you he's proud of what you've built. He's different now. Better. You helped save him too, in your own way. Sophia looked up to find Nathaniel waiting outside the restaurant, his smile warm in the lamplight. No longer the stranger from an engagement party, but the man who'd stood beside her through the hardest year of her life. Ready for the next adventure? He asked, offering his arm. Sophia smiled, feeling the weight of possibility ahead of them. I thought you'd never ask. Together they walked into their future, authentic, earned, and entirely their own. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.